this is Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, when I see somebody doing something good, I want to give them attention, or they should get applauded for it. This applaud goes into two phases. One is applaud, one is tepid applause, and the second one is, it's a problem. I don't know, it sounds weird and everything else, but you should give credit where credit is due when somebody is doing something good. Tulsi Gabbard. So on Twitter today, she says, I've decided to stop taking PAC lobbyist money. Bottom line, we can't allow our future to be driven and shaped by special interests. When I was first elected to Congress, I promised that money wouldn't influence my decision. I rejected money from Wall Street, Big Pharma, and others. Citizens United worsen the crisis of dark money influencing our country. We need to get corporate money and lobbyists out of politics. I believe in the power of the people and our ability to take action towards a brighter future. Mahalo for allowing me the privilege to serve. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's rare, but that's right. And you know, again, we can get into this question of what's right versus wrong or anything else. I'll make this case that, yes, there's a logical right. 2 + 2 is 4 in any context. In this particular case, you have this situation of right in the sense of, what are your obligations in that office? Like, regardless of what these people think, their ideologies, the concept of right in this particular case is not specific to what the individual wants or what the individual believes. It is specific to that office. There's a difference in those things. So if your office is saying you're commissioned to represent the people in your particular district, you're commissioned to represent the people in your particular state, you're commissioned to represent the people of your country. If that's your office, if that's the basis and the philosophical point of your particular office, meaning the existence of that office is doing something to benefit something else, I mean there's a very specific and higher goal to that office, then any of your ideologies is subordinate to the goals in that office. What I mean is, if there is something corrupting you, if there's something changing the way in which you would typically do business if you weren't necessarily being influenced by some kind of special interest, then that is a problem. And it's not just a problem, it directly conflicts with your obligation to that office. What I'm saying is, Tulsi Gabbard making this thing of saying, look, I'm not going to take money in politics. I full well understand that, one, it's a negative influence because those people lean in a particular way based upon the money they're getting. You get hooked and addicted to a particular cash flow. If you want that cash flow again for the next election, you better lean a particular way to continue to get that cash flow. So that's one point. The second point is, politics. Understanding your audience. So James Baldwin, man is amazing. The man is amazing. If you ever want, he has the most elegant mind of a person I've ever come across in my life. The way he says things, the way he phrases things. His, yeah, the man is amazing. The man is absolutely amazing. But he has this, I'm sorry, that's an aside. I really like Baldwin. In her case, she's building her audience. Now, James Baldwin had this thing of saying, you know, you construct your audience by every line that you write and everything that you do. For the most part, as you're doing things, just the way you're functioning, you need to pay attention to the fact that you have an audience. That audience can't be created any other way other than you putting pen to paper and putting it out there. Your audience is built each time you do something like that. I'm saying that also translates to politics. That's not just literary, that's also politics. That's almost anything that concerns some kind of power base. She understands that her base is not cash. So from a political standpoint, yeah, she's not going to take that money because ultimately the people who are voting for her are progressives. It's just like Rakana, when he's on Tim Black's show, he understands his base. He's like, look, the people who are going to put me in this office don't like this. If I am to get elected, they are immensely skeptical of this stuff. I'm better off without it. They full well understand politically that there is a massive headwind in the Democratic Party or in progressive circles. If you're going to take cash and try to run, you're not getting those votes. So from a political standpoint, yes, this makes sense. From an integrity standpoint, it makes sense. I'd argue that the integrity standpoint is more important, even though the political standpoint also is a reality in that sense. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Because, look, I understand the situation. Most people, it's almost as if it's this massive secret that everybody knows. That these guys are getting bribes, and they're calling them campaign donations. They're bribes. Call them what they are. They're bribes. I'm giving you money, and based upon the money that I'm giving you, I know you're going to lean a particular way because I know you want that money again. It's like, come on, man. This is a goddamn... It's a scam. It's a scam. Where politics begins and where economics ends is a murky line at this point. And for the most part, cash has drowned out our political system. Meaning, in every level of government, typically the side with the most money wins. Exclude presidential elections because there's so much limelight. When you get into smaller races, state, House representative races, the one with the cash, I think it's like 90-something%, wins. If you know that the one with the most cash wins in that model, what are you going to do? Who are you going to cater to? This is just a logic thing. If me getting $1 million from Bob gets me more votes, like meaning I have a better chance with getting $1 million from Bob than I do kind of catering to all these people and representing my constituents. If I am representing my constituents, Bob is not going to give me money. This is not a united country. This was never a united country. You must understand the country, like every other country, has factions within the country. Those factions, those demographics, those people who core themselves off into their own particular reality have certain goals and objectives that they themselves want to accomplish. All of those things are not in line with one another. So yes, you may have a Christian right that wants this kind of religious theocracy. Yes, you would have the rich part of the Republican Party who don't necessarily want this theocracy, but they do want the tax cuts. Yes, you're going to have the progressive wing of the leftist party in this particular country who says, look, I don't want any of that stuff. You guys have shilled and screwed us over for years. Yes, I don't want any of that stuff. If you're taking money, if you're going to be part of this war machine, I want nothing to do with it. You have the other Democrats who are just robots. Let's be honest, they're just robots. Hillary Clinton is the best candidate. Hillary Clinton is going to win in 2020. If Hillary Clinton would have won if it wasn't for Russian Comey, people just don't like her, but she's better. She's really the best candidate we've ever had. I mean, these people are robots. Oh, the investigation into Hillary was unfair. The fact that she was misusing documents or special documents. Like, come on. My point is, you have all these various factions in a particular country. Each faction, and look, these are just major factions. I'm not even talking about political factions. You get into NRA, you get into Black Lives Matter, you get into environmental groups. All of these groups, all of these people, all of these things that have corded themselves off into their own particular reality have certain drives and incentives that they themselves want to accomplish. The problem is, the people at the bottom with all these other drives don't realize that their issue is class. And so they fritter away their energies and all these other different points. What I'm getting at is, in this very specific case, your political system is built on cash. That's a problem. And it's not just built on cash. I mean, the fact that each of these groups are vying for control in that sense. So you have all of these special interest groups that have very specific interests that run counter to the narratives of the constituents in your particular district. I'm giving you a bunch of cash. You better listen to me. I'm giving you a bunch of cash. So what are you going to do? You're going to take that cash and you're going to tell your constituents whatever you have to tell your constituents to get their vote. Most people don't pay attention to politics. So, yes, I can take that money, I can tell them whatever I need to tell them, and I can still stay in office. And for the most part, the rate of incumbents staying in office bears that out. But in this particular case, I think she realizes there's no downside. There's no downside. She's a darling of the progressive movement at this point. I would imagine that Democrats also like her, particularly if she was going up against somebody. She's unsullied herself in regards to taking campaign or corporate donations. She's been awesome in regards to anti-war stance, even catching flack from the other Democrats. I like her. I like her. I like her a lot. Again, give applause when applause is due. Our political system is corrupt. If you want to do anything, you need to get money out of politics. And not just money out of politics. You need to change the model. Because, look, I understand they want to go through the Wolfpack route and they want to get that stuff done, and that's fine. But the problem is capitalism. The problem is capitalism. Meaning, yes, even if you get that money out of politics thing, you act like that money is still invisible. That money is still there. There can be other influence that crop up just by virtue of the model itself, or just by virtue of capital trying to reach into the political apparatus. You need to change the model, not just an aspect of the model. You know, it's this reformist idea. It's like a Democrat's idea of, well, we accept capitalism the way it is. We just want to make some changes to it. No, fuck that. We need to change it all. We need to change it all. Tulsi, good job. Tulsi, good job. Second point. Sanders. I've given Sanders a lot of flack. I've given him a hell of a lot of flack. And I will give him flack after I say this. But there's one thing we need to give applause to also. We're literally at the point where there's pressure for single-payer healthcare, like literal pressure for single-payer healthcare. If a Democrat gets in office, he or she will be almost commissioned to do so. Broad support of the population, Republicans and Democrats. That's a consensus. That consensus wasn't even on the table at the point where Obama ran. Between the time that Sanders ran, he's put this into the public consciousness of, yes, you can have these things. You can have these things. It's almost like the very act of breaking into the public consciousness of sorts of saying, yes, these things are available to you. Yes, you can make a choice to have healthcare, college. You can make the choice to have these things. It's the richest goddamn country on the planet. If other countries are able to do it, are you telling me that American exceptionalism can't find a way to figure out how to provide healthcare and education for all of the people in this particular country without drowning them in debt? Is that what you're telling me? So yeah, you have to give him credit for that. I mean, ultimately, he's broken open the Overton window of debate. You have candidates openly saying, I'm not taking campaign, I'm not taking cash. I'm not going to take it. I'd rather run without it. And Sanders, being able to show the model for it, has showed a model, meaning that it's possible. The excuse of, oh, we have to take these big donations. We don't have a choice. We have to be courtiers for the people who are giving us money. Well, Sanders just shown that was bogus. He showed it was bogus. If you're representing your constituents, the amount of money you have somewhat lessens, if that makes sense. Like, look, there was always this thing between workers and the rich or the wealthy. Workers had unions. This idea of muscle, manpower, confronted with cash. So you had huge amounts of wealth versus manpower going into districts, you know, on the ground support for that sense. It wasn't this case where Democrats were necessarily going to always have more money. Well, that's changed. That's changed. For the most part, they've allowed the unions to be decimated. They've allowed their major voter base, African Americans, to be disenfranchised with voters all throughout the country. And beyond that, the policies and everything else they've espoused, even though they've spoken like FDR, have ended up being more like Ronald Reagan. So it's an amazing thing. I mean, you have to give them credit. Because it has, to some degree, shocked the party to a degree where you have this, there is, I guess, somewhat of an internal war going. I'm just impressed that they're talking about these things now, where these things were completely off the table just 4 years ago. So you have to give Sanders credit on that point. On the other hand, Sanders is still a Democrat. And he's functioning as a Democrat, even though he's calling himself an independent and a democratic socialist. Does he have support to get these items on his agenda through? I don't think so. I think you have some people in the Democratic Party who will be on board with Sanders' agenda. I think the majority wouldn't. I think you still have that model of cash. And unless you get those people out there seats, meaning primary challenges, meaning third parties in order to go after these guys, you're always going to have that issue. This is a slow process. And it's aggravating to me that it's the slow. Like, if their goal is to say, okay, we're going to pick off one Democrat after the next, that is going to take forever. That's going to take forever. If you had some other surge of energy, this is why I'm into this third party thing, to kind of topple the idea, and not just third party, a movement. That's what I keep saying, a movement. This is political stuff, that's fine. Tulsi Gabbard, that's great. I like the fact that Tulsi Gabbard is going to do what she's going to do. I like the fact that Sanders is going to do what he's going to do if it was put up for a vote. But you need to put pressure on people who are not like these guys to get full well across to them that you will be out on your ass if you do not vote for this particular agenda. I guarantee you that is the strength that you're looking for in regards to politics and political force. What these guys care about is their seats. The reason why they take all of this money is because they want to ensure they keep their seats. You don't necessarily always need to attack the money. You can also attack that seat. You can attack that seat. Movements, attack, positions. If you have a mass movement of people pointing aim at somebody, yes, that money is going to come important, but yes, that person is also going to get money. It's not like a Democrat is not going to have any cash coming in. She's going to have cash coming in from their constituents. But there's a difference in the sense of having a mass amount of people targeted at a very specific person saying, do this or else. The fact that people haven't been politically engaged to some degree is the reason why Washington has descended into what it's descended. If you're not overwatching these guys, then what do you think they're going to do? What do you think they're going to do? Just as a human being, if you're not giving oversight, do you think they're going to take actions that are going to enrich themselves? Yes, they're people. Do you think they're going to take actions that may go against their constituents, particularly if somebody is giving them money and that money is required for them to stay in their seats? Yes, of course, they're people. I'm saying this model is built on corruption. It's oozing through it. And the way we talk about our system as if it's a shining city on a hill, this thing is a corrupt Ponzi scheme that's merged itself into the democratic process. So, the fact, I don't want Sanders supporting that. That's my point. Good job, Tulsi Gabbard. Good job, Sanders, for being able to break the public consciousness. A wag the finger, Sanders, for still working with the Democratic Party. It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. I like Tulsi. I actually like her a lot. I've watched her, the war stuff. She's been brave as hell doing that. All these other Democrats have came out against her, and she's still like, we need to stop sending troops and support, or we need to stop sending support to Syria to work with terrorists. We need to stop that. Even when everybody was against her. She even went to spoke to Trump, again, when everybody was against her for doing it. She was willing to buck the party based on integrity. Yeah, I like her. I like her. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support the work through Patreon.